The story of how a cheating wife and her boss lover decided to deceive her husband, but he was not a fool and took revenge on these adulterers. Freddie realized he had committed the gravest error of his life when he was summoned by the firm's owner. Without hesitation, he rose from his seat and made his way to Thomas Alexander's office, his mind racing. Surely Thomas couldn't be aware of the situation. As both the accountant and general manager, Freddie alone had access to the company's financial intricacies, meticulously balancing the books by month's end. Nervously sweating, Freddie reluctantly knocked on the door, knowing Thomas rarely delved into the specifics unless there were glaring discrepancies in the financial reports. Thomas, typically preoccupied with his luxury lifestyle, greeted Freddie with a serious expression and gestured toward a chair. Instantly, Freddie's false sense of security shattered. "How long have you been embezzling from me?" Thomas asked bluntly, leaving Freddie reeling in denial. Despite his protests, Thomas presented transaction records detailing a substantial sum routed through Freddie's personal account before returning to the company's coffers. Caught red-handed, Freddie could only mutter, "I'm sorry, Thomas. I only needed a short-term loan until the temporary loan company reached out. Without it, we would have lost the new house Kimberly was counting on. I didn't steal it. I paid it back as soon as I could, well before the month's end," Freddie pleaded. "I don't know how they categorize it, Freddie, whether as theft or fraud, but you're facing jail time. And even without that, you could lose your job. I can't trust you. Please, give me a chance." It was a moment of madness. "I've been with the company for almost 17 years, and I've never considered anything like this before, nor will I again," Freddie implored. Thomas stood by the window, lost in thought. "You and Kimberly have been my friends for so long. That's what makes the situation even more frustrating. Did Kimberly know about it?" Freddie was taken aback by the question. He couldn't help but wonder if it was Kimberly's idea all along. She seemed so desperate to keep the house that she might have suggested it, reassuring Freddie that no one would ever find out. While Freddie hoped that involving Kimberly might dissuade Thomas from involving the authorities, he didn't want to implicate her. After a long pause, he replied, "No, she's unaware that it was my idea." Thomas appeared taken aback by Freddie's response, but chose not to dwell on it. "I need time to consider this," he said. "Freddie, I'm unsure of the best course of action. Go home, take the rest of the week off. I'll have a decision by Friday." As Freddie made his way home, he couldn't shake the mystery of how Thomas had found out. No one reviewed the deals, and Thomas certainly didn't handle the details. His mind raced with worries about Thomas's impending decision. None of the outcomes seemed favorable, but the thought of facing a public trial and potential jail time sent him into a panic. He knew Kimberly wouldn't be expecting him. As he gazed upon their new house, he regretted the purchase deeply. Suddenly, he recalled those stories where a man comes home early in the morning to discover his wife's infidelity. What a perfect end to a disastrous day that would be. Thankfully, upon entering the kitchen, Kimberly was her usual bright, sunny self, fully dressed. Freddie couldn't help but admire her beauty once more. At barely 38, her long curly brown hair framed deep brown eyes, and he appreciated her figure more now, with its curves and ample cleavage, than he did when they first married. But above all, he cherished her smile, a luxury he feared he'd have to forfeit for the foreseeable future. Freddie confided in Kimberly about his conversation with Thomas and the evidence involved. Kimberly's response was one of shock and remorse. "Oh my God, honey, I'm so sorry. It's all my fault. It was my idea, all for this stupid house," she admitted. Freddie simply shrugged. "I told Thomas you had no involvement. There's no point in getting us both into trouble." Considering a different approach, Freddie pondered the idea of speaking to Thomas directly. But in the end, they decided to wait it out, knowing these would be the longest 3 days of their lives. Perhaps they could appeal to Thomas's mercy. Despite the gravity of the situation, Freddie couldn't help but consider what he would do if he were in Thomas's shoes. They were friends outside of work, attending parties and social gatherings together. Perhaps that friendship offered a glimmer of hope. Come Friday night, anticipation gnawed at both Freddie and Kimberly as they awaited Thomas' arrival. When his Cadillac finally pulled up, they both felt a wave of sickness wash over them. Freddie couldn't help but reflect on Thomas's seemingly perfect life, good looks, wealth, charm, and now the power to dismantle it all. Guiding Thomas forward with strained greetings, Freddie and Kimberly offered him a beer, as was their custom. Freddie took the lead in the conversation. "I just want to say, I'm really sorry, Thomas. I've let you down big time. I realize I've put myself in a desperate situation, and I can handle whatever decision you make." Thomas smiled oddly. "I really hope that's true, Freddie." The ensuing silence felt unbearable, driving on until Thomas finally broke it. "You know, Freddie, I'm a little jealous of you and Kimberly's relationship. I've missed that in my life." Freddie was taken aback. He had always assumed Thomas had it all, including a string of attractive girlfriends. Perhaps, nearing 40, Thomas was contemplating settling down. "So, with that in mind, I have a suggestion," Thomas continued. "It won't please either of you, but it's the only scenario in which you can avoid jail time, Freddie. And remember, there's a risk to Kimberly as well, since the account was joint and used to secure the house in both your names." Freddie panicked at the thought of Kimberly being held accountable. He had no idea what consequences she might face. Thomas took a slow, long breath. "It's not easy to say, but my suggestion is this. From now on, Kimberly will spend time with me. I like her and I want to sleep with her. Put her legs over my shoulders and go in as deep as I can. That's my wish, and you must accept it." The room fell into stunned silence. Thomas pressed on. "No police, no court cases, no jail. You both keep your jobs, stay together, but I will spend every Friday night with her." "Thomas, you can't be serious," Freddie whispered in disbelief. "Freddie, I'm completely serious. I've desired Kimberly for years, and this is my chance. I simply can't resist her. There's no other option. We can't buy our way out of this," Thomas replied calmly. "We need time to think about this, Thomas. We can't make a decision like this so quickly," Kimberly interjected. Thomas remained resolute. "Take your time, but remember, this is the only offer I'm making. Perhaps in time, this arrangement won't be too burdensome for any of us." Freddie turned sharply. "You can't seriously consider agreeing to this, Kimberly. Are you out of your mind?" Kimberly sighed. "I don't see any other options, Freddie. We've been racking our brains all week." Growling with contempt, Freddie glared at Thomas. "You despicable, vile excuse for a human being. This is beyond twisted." Thomas returned the glare with a smile. "That may be true, Freddie, but at least I'm not a thief like you." He then turned to Kimberly. "If we're going through with this, we need to start now." "We can't just rush into this," Freddie protested, his voice shaking with anger. But after 20 minutes of heated arguments and accusations, Thomas rose to his feet decisively. "It's time to make a choice. Either I leave in the car, or I go upstairs with Kimberly." He extended his hand to Kimberly, who hesitated before accepting it. Stunned, Freddie sank back into his chair, his mind reeling. "Freddie, we have no other choice. Everything will be okay," Kimberly reassured him before she led Thomas through the living room and up the stairs. Time seemed to stand still for Freddie as he sat in silence, grappling with the reality of what had just transpired. His mind raced with anxious thoughts about what was happening upstairs, the muffled sounds of movement and conversation echoing through the stillness of the house. Then came the first creak of the bed, the unmistakable sound of two people beginning to engage in intimacy. The movements and sounds persisted, the creaking growing more rhythmic and accompanied by muffled moans, intensifying in pace and volume. There seemed to be no end to it, and Freddie felt like he was losing his mind. Shame and guilt washed over him as he wiped his cheeks and eyes. Waiting for Thomas and Kimberly to return downstairs, Freddie heard more muffled talking and movement. After a lengthy silence, he decided to check on Kimberly's well-being. As he approached the foot of the stairs, he caught snippets of Thomas's voice. "That's it, baby," he heard amidst the sounds. But what troubled Freddie most was Kimberly's constant whimpering, occasionally punctuated by affirmations. He needed to leave the house. Hastily, he exited and walked aimlessly down the street, his mind swirling with questions. Was Kimberly truly enjoying this? Or was she merely putting on a performance for Thomas? Freddie couldn't help but wonder how vehemently she had objected to the arrangement. He couldn't ignore the fact that Thomas, 5 years younger and handsome, might have had an effect on her resistance. As he reached the park, Freddie's perspective shifted. Kimberly was enduring this to spare him from jail. He needed to return home and ensure she was as safe and comfortable as possible. The Cadillac was still parked outside, but the house remained eerily quiet. Upon entering, he headed to the kitchen and grabbed a beer, turning to find Kimberly behind him in a short robe. They exchanged puzzled looks before Freddie broke the silence. "Are you all right?" he asked, genuine concern in his voice. Kimberly managed a weak smile. "Yeah, thanks for asking," she replied before continuing. "He's been considerate. Nothing rough or unusual, just regular. I'm sorry if you overheard anything." Freddie shrugged, relief washing over him. "Well, at least it's over," he remarked. But Kimberly's expression grew uncomfortable as she admitted. "Actually, he wants to go again. I came down for a beer and to check on you." Freddie shook his head in disbelief. "He must be saving his energy for you, Kimberly," he said sarcastically. "Why don't you go to the den? It might be more comfortable there and quieter. See if you can think of a way out of this mess." Freddie remained in the room for another hour, unable to make any progress toward a solution. Suddenly, he heard footsteps descending the stairs. Stepping out into the hallway, he saw Thomas suppress a smile before addressing the awkward silence. "Look, I know this isn't easy for you, Freddie," Thomas began. "I promise to treat Kimberly with the utmost respect, and I truly appreciate you allowing me to spend time with her. I hope you feel better, and rest assured, our work together will remain confidential." Freddie responded bluntly, his frustration evident. "Don't thank me. You left us in a choice." Both Thomas and Kimberly looked visibly uncomfortable. Sensing that it was time for him to leave, Thomas said his goodbyes. Kimberly kissed him. Not an intense kiss, but it landed on his lips and lingered for a moment. Freddie was taken aback. "What was that?" he demanded, looking at Kimberly. Realizing her misstep, Kimberly attempted to downplay it. "Oh, it was just a kiss goodbye." "No, it wasn't just a kiss," Freddie retorted. "It was a sign of affection. Seems like you two had a good time, and here I was worrying." Kimberly's anger flared. "I can't believe your boss just took advantage of me 3 times because of your actions, and you're fixated on a goodbye kiss, Freddie. It was supposed to be a transaction, an agreement, just text." "Did you kiss him upstairs, Kimberly?" Freddie pressed. "Maybe a little, but nothing significant, Freddie," Kimberly replied, her frustration evident. "At first, it was just a few times, and now he's asking for more, even some caresses." Kimberly's response ignited Freddie's anger. "It's not like that," she protested. "Everything I'm doing is to keep us out of jail. I have to be willing to ensure he enjoys himself. We both need to adjust to this reality. If I can endure it, you have to find a way to cope too." Freddie felt deflated by her words. Despite his doubts about her actions, Kimberly had made the sacrifice, not him. If she hadn't agreed, where would he be? Likely behind bars. Unable to bear the thought of the master bedroom, Freddie and Kimberly retreated to the guest room, seeking solace in each other's embrace. While Kimberly quickly drifted off to sleep, Freddie remained wide awake, his mind consumed with thoughts of escape from their current predicament. The night seemed endless as he wrestled with his desperate desire to find a way out of their torment. Throughout the week, Freddie and Kimberly barely exchanged words, their conversations revolving solely around devising an escape from their dire situation. Freddie brainstormed various plans, most of which proved futile. Even when a promising solution emerged, Thomas always seemed one step ahead. One plan involved erasing all evidence, but Thomas had already cut off Freddie's access to backups and claimed to have transferred all financial data to a new, secure cloud system. As Friday approached once more, Thomas sent a text suggesting he take Kimberly out to dinner, ostensibly to ease the tension. Freddie wasn't convinced it would make things any easier. On one hand, a dinner date felt uncomfortably intimate, blurring the lines between transaction and relationship. On the other hand, it meant less time with Kimberly in bed. In the end, Freddie found himself caught in the worst of both scenarios. Kimberly appeared despondent about the prospect of the date, but still made an effort to prepare herself. Freddie couldn't help but think she was putting in too much effort and looked far too appealing for the occasion. Watching Kimberly being escorted into Thomas's Cadillac in a sleek black dress and stiletto heels was gut-wrenching for Freddie. The evening only grew more agonizing as he bombarded Kimberly with texts, each met with a curt assurance that she was fine, just enjoying dinner or a drink. When they returned home at 9:30 p.m., Thomas embraced Kimberly warmly, their laughter echoing through the house. Observing Kimberly's apparent enjoyment, Freddie couldn't shake the feeling of unease. "We never agreed to this being a date," he protested as they entered the house. "Relax, Freddie," Thomas replied, his tone casual. "It was just dinner and drinks between friends. If things are going to be awkward, maybe we should just head straight upstairs." Confused, Freddie demanded, "What do you mean, upstairs?" Thomas's smile remained almost mocking. "We made a deal for every Friday, Freddie. So tonight, I'll be with Kimberly and you'll manage in the spare room." Kimberly sensed the tension, fearing Freddie might lash out at Thomas. She quickly led him into the kitchen, whispering reassurances. "It'll be okay, honey. I'll handle him quickly, then pretend to be drunk and head to bed. Remember, we don't have a choice." With a heavy heart, Freddie retreated, overwhelmed by a profound sense of powerlessness. As they ascended the stairs, Freddie couldn't shake the sound of Kimberly's laughter. He desperately hoped it was all an act for Thomas, yet a nagging doubt lingered. Was it also a facade for him? Exhausted, Freddie finally retired to the spare room, but every time he woke throughout the night, the creak of the bed in the adjacent room haunted him. In the morning, Freddie descended the stairs to find Thomas already seated at the table, with Kimberly bustling about in the kitchen preparing breakfast. Frustration boiled over within him. "Get out, Thomas. It's not Friday, and your time is up," Freddie spat. Kimberly attempted to diffuse the tension. "Freddie, there's no need for." Freddie cut her off sharply. "You have 30 seconds to leave my house." Thomas appeared ready to argue, but with a resigned sigh, he rose from his seat and made his way to the door. As he departed, he offered a parting reminder to Freddie. "Don't forget what you stand to gain from this." Turning to Kimberly, Freddie issued a curt command. "Make him breakfast." Kimberly's eyes widened in disbelief. "Are you serious? Why not just move in with him? You're practically his wife now," Freddie retorted before storming out, before she could formulate a response. On the third Friday, Thomas proposed they spend the night in a hotel to avoid any further confrontations with Freddie. At 7:20 p.m., Kimberly left, dressed in her usual attire, hoping to minimize any discomfort for Freddie. The plan was for her to change at the hotel, where Thomas would meet her later at the restaurant. The luxury of the hotel overwhelmed her, feeling out of place in her casual clothes. Upon entering the pre-booked room, Kimberly was surprised to find it was a suite. The table was adorned with flowers, and 2 gift-wrapped boxes sat on the bed. Opening the larger box, she discovered a stunning silver satin gown with a plunging neckline and thigh-high slit. The second box contained a matching red satin corset, thong, and luxurious black stockings. Though hesitant at first, Kimberly decided to try them on. To her surprise, they'd fit perfectly, and she couldn't deny feeling incredibly confident in them. She made the bold choice to keep them on and headed down to the restaurant. When Thomas laid eyes on her, he was speechless, struck by how stunning Kimberly looked. The dinner and wine that ensued were exquisite, yet the tension hung heavy in the air, both aware of what awaited them afterward. In Thomas's company, Kimberly found herself surprisingly relaxed and decided to go along with the scenario rather than fighting against it. As they returned to the hotel room, Thomas slowly undressed her in a sensual manner, and Kimberly enjoyed his reaction to her lingerie. His hands glided over her body, appreciating how the corset accentuated her curves and the silky stockings felt against her skin. She reluctantly acknowledged that Thomas was an attentive and confident lover, bringing an element of excitement and danger she had never experienced with her husband. The next morning, after another intimate encounter, Kimberly changed back into her casual clothes. She explained to Thomas that she couldn't risk taking her dress or lingerie home. Thomas agreed to keep them at his house for Kimberly's future use. Kimberly sighed, realizing that this arrangement was likely to continue long-term. Her emotions were in turmoil. Despite feelings of guilt, she couldn't deny the excitement and satisfaction she felt. Meanwhile, Freddie lay awake for most of Friday night and into Saturday morning. By 11 o'clock a.m., Kimberly still hadn't returned, once again breaking their agreement. This was becoming increasingly intolerable for Freddie. Freddie harbored doubts that Thomas would resist being with Kimberly again this morning, and he feared Kimberly might not even attempt to resist, no matter how hard he tried to persuade her. His trust in Kimberly was dwindling, and he worried that this erosion of trust could spell the end of their marriage. He felt more distant from Kimberly than ever before, and utterly alone. That ill-advised kiss weighed heavily on Freddie's mind, unsettling him more than anything else. And making breakfast for Thomas, what was she thinking? In fact, Kimberly was starting to believe the entire situation was a dreadful mistake from her perspective. Her time with Thomas proved surprisingly easy. He was handsomely respectable and brought an excitement she had longed for. The allure of his wealth and cars only added to his appeal. Kimberly always aspired to better things, but now she found herself caught in a dilemma. While the passion with Thomas was scorching, it was a constant struggle to suppress her desires for more. She had hoped Freddie would grow accustomed to their arrangement and come to his senses, but after 3 weeks, he remained moody. They hadn't been intimate either, a situation Kimberly desperately wanted to rectify. She loved Freddie deeply and regretted the predicament they found themselves in. Trying to reassure Freddie, she insisted she was managing, urging him not to feel guilty. She emphasized that her relationship with Thomas was purely physical, devoid of love, and she didn't want it to drive a wedge between them. But her efforts fell on deaf ears. Freddie appeared defeated, his once constant presence in her life now a distant memory, lost to the turmoil of their circumstances. Upon arriving at work on Monday, Thomas informed Freddie that he would need to attend a training event out of town on Wednesday and Thursday of the following week. Freddie felt immediately wary, but given his precarious position at work, he had no choice but to agree. "Okay, I can do that," Freddie replied, "but it doesn't affect our personal arrangement. You can't come over when I'm not home." Thomas reassured him, "Of course not." When Freddie relayed the news to Kimberly that evening, she didn't appear surprised or concerned. The training event wasn't a regular occurrence, happening only once or twice a year, but it still felt too convenient for Freddie. Retreating to the kitchen, Freddie intended to strategize his way out of their predicament, but a blinding headache derailed his plans. As he ascended the stairs in search of pain relief, he overheard Kimberly talking on the phone. Curious, he listened in on her part of the conversation, wondering who she was speaking to. "Why are you sending Freddie on this trip? It's not a good idea. Things aren't going well, and your presence will only make it worse." "No, he hasn't come up with any solutions yet. He seems defeated and resigned to the situation. I didn't expect it to be like this. He's devastated. You know I enjoy our time together, but I never anticipated him reacting so strongly. This was meant to be a safe alternative to our affair, without the risk of discovery. I didn't anticipate all of this. I helped cover for you with the kissing and breakfast, and meanwhile, you've been acting arrogantly, smirking in his face. Fine, you can join him on the trip, but after that, I think we need to scale things back, or even end it altogether. If you're willing to end this arrangement because you see how it's affecting Freddie, then you'll be doing the right thing, and maybe we can return to normal. Perhaps if we're discreet, we can still see each other occasionally. Yeah, we'll discuss it more later, but right now, I really need to repair things with Freddie. I still love him." Freddie descended the stairs, feeling as though he'd been dealt a heavy blow to the gut. He had just heard everything, and the implications were staggering. It now made sense why Thomas seemed to have foreseen all his moves. Kimberly had disclosed it all beforehand, and it had been her idea from the start. She had persuaded Freddie to borrow the money against his better judgment. This revelation also explained how Thomas had uncovered the discrepancy in the first place. It had been so cleverly concealed that Freddie doubted even an audit would have unearthed it if he hadn't been married to someone so astute, which ultimately kept him out of jail. In reality, he was married to someone deceitful and manipulative, and thoughts of revenge and violence flickered through his mind. Emotions overwhelmed him. He knew he needed to calm down and think rationally. He required a plan, preferably one that would make them feel the weight of his anguish. Freddie avoided Kimberly for the remainder of the night and into the following morning. When he finally saw Kimberly on Tuesday night, he chose not to bring up the overheard phone call. Instead, he mentioned hearing gossip at work about someone boasting of being with a top-notch woman. Freddie expressed concern that Kimberly's name might have been mentioned, hoping fervently that it hadn't. Early Wednesday morning, Freddie departed for his trip, and Kimberly told him she loved him. Freddie briefly smiled and feigned distraction, checking his phone schedule as he left. Later that Wednesday morning, Thomas arrived at Kimberly's, and she immediately confronted him about Freddie's alleged gossip. Thomas denied everything, blaming Freddie for stirring up trouble. Kimberly found herself torn, unsure whom to trust. She couldn't understand why Freddie would fabricate such a story, but she also began to question Thomas's discretion. They discussed the predicament and potential solutions. Kimberly acknowledged the emotional connection she shared with Freddie, contrasting it with the purely physical relationship she had with Thomas. Before Thomas departed Thursday afternoon, he persuaded Kimberly to continue their affair, although she made it clear that it would be the final encounter until her relationship with Freddie improved. Exiting the house, Thomas froze in disbelief at the sight before him. A large kitchen knife rested on the gleaming hood of his Cadillac, surrounded by slashed tires. Scanning the area, he found no one in sight. The incident wasn't isolated, his car had been vandalized before. Rushing back inside, Thomas shared the shocking discovery with Kimberly, and both began to panic. Thomas suspected Freddie, who could have returned home earlier, unless it was the work of kids or someone envious of his flashy car. Kimberly called Freddie to inquire about the training course. Freddie nonchalantly mentioned it was uneventful, and that he was preparing to head home. He remained composed, not mentioning Thomas. Kimberly eagerly anticipated his return, swiftly concluding the call. She relayed the conversation to Thomas, noting Freddie's apparent lack of distress, suggesting it might have been the work of mischievous kids. Despite the apparent normalcy, they needed to arrange for the car to be towed before Freddie arrived home, prompting a flurry of calls and hefty expenses. Upon Freddie's return Thursday night, Kimberly treaded carefully around him, assuming the role of the dutiful wife. To her surprise, Thomas sent a text confirming his intention to visit on Friday, solely to discuss the situation. Kimberly found solace in the thought that Thomas might finally put an end to the turmoil, perhaps deterred by the car incident. Friday morning, Freddie adhered to his usual routine. Arriving at work at 9 o'clock a.m., however, his demeanor was far from usual when he called Kimberly in a panicked tone, urgently insisting she see something. Freddie explained that he had just received a video clip via their personal email, emphasizing its importance. Kimberly accessed their email on her phone, located the message, and opened the video clip. The video, though of poor quality and only 43 seconds in duration, unequivocally depicted Kimberly and Thomas engaging in sexual activity. The sender remained anonymous. Overwhelmed, Kimberly exclaimed, "Oh my God, is that our bedroom?" She struggled to discern the time of day due to the unclear lighting. Kimberly, however, knew precisely when the encounter had taken place. Yet, she feigned uncertainty, suggesting that the lighting might have been altered in editing. Freddie's accusation lingered in the air, insinuating Kimberly's complicity. Kimberly chose not to address it, focusing instead on the imminent discussion with Thomas. Freddie speculated on Thomas's motives, pondering whether the video served as a form of retaliation. Kimberly initially denied any involvement, but then considered Thomas's reaction to her decision to end their affair. She speculated that he might have recorded the encounter to coerce her into continuing the relationship. Given the 3-day window, Thomas had ample opportunity to set up the recording. Freddie informed Kimberly that Thomas was absent from work, rendering him unreachable for questioning. Despite this, Kimberly felt an urgent need to contact him, hoping to address recent events. Just as she contemplated reaching out, her phone buzzed with an urgent message from her sister Timothy. Sensing an opportunity to gather her thoughts, Kimberly excused herself to answer the call from Timothy. However, instead of finding solace, Kimberly was met with a flurry of questions and admonishments. After Timothy finally paused for breath, Kimberly learned that her sister had also received the incriminating video clip. Subsequent calls flooded in from close friends and even her mother, all referencing the same distressing footage. It was a calamity of epic proportions. Kimberly's anger flared as she realized Freddie couldn't have orchestrated this. The perpetrator had to be Thomas. Determined to confront Thomas, Kimberly repeatedly attempted to reach him, but to no avail. Unbeknownst to her, Freddie had seized Thomas's phone during a meeting at work, disposed of the battery, and retained the handset along with its SIM card. Freddie had left an envelope on Thomas's desk containing pertinent information before quietly departing from work to return home. Freddie observed his wife's distress with a mix of satisfaction and amusement. Kimberly was grappling with the fallout of the leaked video, distraught over her family and friends' perceptions of her alleged affair. Freddie, reveling in the chaos he had instigated, playfully suggested various unhelpful strategies to contain the damage, all while casting doubt on the timeline of the incriminating footage. Despite this, Kimberly remained silent about Thomas's midweek visit, consumed by thoughts of how everything had spiraled out of control. Reflecting on how she had reached this point, Kimberly traced it back to a night of drunken flirtation with Thomas at a party. His charm and interest had lingered in her mind for weeks afterward. She convinced herself that seeking a bit of excitement was justified, but never intended to jeopardize her marriage to Freddie. Witnessing a friend's marriage crumble due to infidelity had always served as a cautionary tale, prompting Kimberly to devise what she believed was a clever plan. A discreet arrangement that her husband was ostensibly aware of. The challenge of orchestrating the secret liaison had added a thrilling edge to her otherwise mundane life. From Kimberly's perspective, it had seemed like a perfect setup. But she had never considered the emotional toll it would take on Freddie. Now facing the repercussions, she was overwhelmed with regret and anguish. Despite Freddie's popularity and everyone's admiration for him, Kimberly dreaded the daunting task of explaining herself and salvaging their fractured relationship. The idea of anyone believing that Freddie had consented to her tryst with Thomas seemed increasingly improbable, compounding her distress. The screech of Thomas's tires announced his arrival at Freddie and Kimberly's house. Kimberly, in a fit of anger, attempted to attack Thomas, and Freddie, observing passively, noted the impressive scratch on Thomas's cheek. After some struggle, Thomas managed to pin Kimberly against the wall, giving her a chance to speak. Kimberly confronted Thomas about the video, accusing him of its creation and dissemination. However, Freddie interjected with unexpected laughter, stating, "If it wasn't you, then it must have been me." Both Kimberly and Thomas were taken aback by Freddie's revelation. It was Thomas who quickly grasped the situation. "So you found out about our meeting this week, Freddie," he said. Freddie confirmed this with a resigned tone. Kimberly attempted to justify the incident as a continuation of their arrangement, but Thomas comprehended the implications of the videotape immediately. Sensing Freddie's involvement, Thomas attempted to smooth things over, expressing remorse. "I'm sorry, Freddie. I couldn't resist Kimberly. I never intended to hurt you. It was a lapse in judgment, and I got carried away. I will end the arrangement and disregard the financial matters." Freddie calmly responded, "That's thoughtful of you. Unfortunately, it's too late." Kimberly interjected, "You'll find my resignation letter on your desk." Concerned, Freddie replied, "You can't, Kimberly. How will you manage the mortgage for the house?" Kimberly reassured him, "Don't worry, honey. It'll be on the market by tomorrow." Thomas quickly intervened, No need, Freddie. We can move past this. Your expertise is invaluable to the firm. You know our business and clients inside out. Freddie smiled knowingly. I believe that's accurate. Perhaps that's why your main competitor offered me a position. I suspect many of our clients will follow me. Besides, you owe me more vacation days than the 4 in the notice period, so I won't be returning. Thomas's fake smile faded as Freddie continued. I imagine some of the staff will depart as well. I've informed them of my departure, and many doubt your ability to sustain the company. Thomas urged him to reconsider, saying, You need to think this through, Freddie. You could still face legal consequences. Freddie remained composed. I doubt it. Would you want to involve your mistress? She benefited from the fraud as well. Moreover, you attempted blackmail, and thanks to your actions here, I have this confession on video. It's remarkable what electronic devices are available nowadays. The recording is currently in possession of my attorney. Additionally, you may discover that some of your files were accidentally deleted, and I'm aware you didn't back them up remotely. It's beneficial to have colleagues who support you, but I suppose you weren't aware of that. Thomas smirked, claiming, That tape will never see the inside of a courtroom. Freddie responded wryly, Oddly enough, my lawyer said the same thing. However, I can use it for other purposes, and by the time this is resolved, your business will likely be defunct. Conversely, my new firm might be interested in acquiring you. I've heard their new COO is quite reputable. Kimberly grasped the gravity of the situation as compared to Thomas. His business and finances were seriously at risk. Thomas listened in disbelief as Kimberly embarked on a compelling portrayal of a distressed woman. I love you, Freddie. It was all Thomas's idea. He coerced me into it. While I admit I got confused and carried away, I was only trying to protect you from jail. I felt like I had no other choice, and my life has unraveled because of it. Please, Freddie, I love you. Thomas muttered, You two-faced liar. Freddie grinned at the accuracy of the description. Ah, my dear loving wife, he remarked. In addition to the video, you're overlooking the fact that I overheard you confessing on the phone that this was all your idea. A rather elaborate and cruel cover-up for an affair. He continued, You'll find the divorce papers in an envelope in the kitchen drawer. You're leaving tonight, and you have to agree to the terms of the divorce, or all those video clips could end up with family and friends. I'm sure your mom will be happy to hear that. Not only are you a cheater, but also the extent to which you schemed and blackmailed. Kimberly burst into tears and collapsed to the floor. Freddie glanced at Thomas. Do you want to take her with you, Thomas? No way. She's more trouble than she's worth, Freddie, Thomas replied. Well, I agree with that, Thomas, but this isn't over. At that moment, Freddie took a swing at Thomas, and he wasn't sure who was more surprised when his fist slammed into Thomas's jaw, knocking him to the ground. It's over now, Freddie declared. Update. Freddie replayed the tape a few times. Most of it was painful to hear, but he found some satisfaction in the part where Thomas and Kimberly fretted over whether he had discovered the truth and gone berserk. The image of the knife on the car hood was strangely satisfying, and he couldn't help but smile for the first time in weeks. Freddie had indeed secured a new job with Thomas's competitor, and both customers and employees followed suit. Thomas struggled to hold his firm together, but eventually he had to declare bankruptcy and put the company into administration. He soon moved out of the neighborhood. Meanwhile, Kimberly found herself in a small apartment with the proceeds from a house sale, but no support from Freddie. With limited qualifications, she took on 2 temporary jobs as a housekeeper and waitress. Her former friends distanced themselves from her, and her relationship with her mother and sister grew strained. Freddie, on the other hand, enjoyed a raise in bonuses in his new job, allowing him to transition to a 4-day work week and pursue the sports and outdoor activities he had neglected during his marriage. He realized how much Kimberly had influenced his past decisions, including the purchase of their large home, and wasted no time in selling it off. He maintained a connection with Kimberly's family, particularly Timothy, who repeatedly apologized for his sister's actions and assured Freddie that he would never make the same mistake. With time, Freddie found himself rediscovering his passions and interests, building a fulfilling life that was entirely his own. He explored new hobbies, made new friends, and found joy in the simple pleasures of everyday life. Friends, I look forward to your comments on this story. Have a nice day.